Of all the figures in Donald Trump's administration, Stephen Miller might be the most vile, which makes him the easiest and best target for Gavin Newsom to troll, which is exactly what he has been doing nonstop for months now. But Gavin hasn't just included Stephen Miller in the troll, he's made it a family affair, and that is why his wife is losing her mind on her podcast and a meltdown that we're going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we see Katie Miller melt down after the mockery from Gavin Newsom, I want to start where Newsom started, and that is a call out of Stephen Miller's disgusting and illegal attack with his masked ICE agents.
Donald Trump sent masked men to the event, ICE and Border Patrol, primarily the Border Patrol, to intimidate folks. Poor guy who was selling strawberries was arrested. I imagine he must have been on the most wanted list. Dangerous felon. Disappeared. That is a preview of things to come. Don't think for a second he's going to stop in the National Guard. It's an interesting fact. 4,000 National Guard were federalized, over 700 members of the United States Marine. 95% of them did nothing. They sat there looking for things to do. Hundreds plus $1 million wasted. Literally looking for an assignment. They were taken off the beat. These are police officers, your National Guard. These are firefighters. These are teachers. These are caregivers. They were taken off the streets doing real work to keep you safe and protected, to keep you healthy. And they sat there in the armory looking for something to do. He will send the National Guard. He will send them all across this country, and he will do so through Election Day. And if you think I'm exaggerating, consider the fact that as he demobilized our National Guard, he kept hundreds of them through Election Day. And he'll do so working in concert, as he has with ICE and Border Patrol, to do the same. You have the largest private police force in the world. When they're done with this, all that funding and that big, beautiful portrayal allows more resources for this private police force that increasingly is showing a tendency not to swear an oath to the Constitution, but to the President of the United States. And he'll be sending them to voting booths and polling places all across this country. This is a real and serious moment in U.S. history. And by the way, I say that as an American, not as a Democrat. Every Republican should be ashamed about this and scared to death about not just these authoritarian tendencies, but these authoritarian actions by the president. He is weak. He's weakness masquerading as strength. And that makes him more dangerous than most people believe.
The goal is always intimidation, and it's important to note that part of that is the fact that these men are simply just so insecure. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller aren't tough guys. Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are whiners. They're complainers. They're annoying. People don't like them. That is so much of the conservative movement, this petty personal politics tied up in the fact that people in their life, in Republicans' lives, just don't like them. And they think it's a problem with woke or some trans people for some reason, instead of maybe looking inward and realizing, hey, Stephen Miller, you're a piece of shit, to put it lightly, and that's why people don't like you. And that's the reason Gavin Newsom's had so much success trolling Stephen Miller, and it's leading to his wife's meltdown. The trolling of Stephen Miller and the entire administration recently has started with Gavin Newsom picking some fun at the newly renovated, if you can even call it that, Rose Garden, writing, "Welcome to Predator Patio. Admission, just prove you're on the Epstein list." Newsom's press account continued to rip the redesign, writing, "After ripping healthcare away from 17 million Americans and slashing food stamps for kids, we're glad Mary Antoinette Johnson and his boyfriends had time to toast the grand opening of the Predator Patio." Newsom, in a mega-viral post, crushed Stephen Miller, writing, "As previously mentioned, we are giving serious thought to taking away Stephen Miller's California residency. He is not a great American and is, in my opinion, incapable of being so." We also know that Newsom has had his fun in the past with Stephen Miller, saying that he's a fascist cuck amid rumors about his wife and Elon Musk. So Gavin Newsom's been having more than a little bit of fun lately, and deservedly so. Good on Gavin. I think mocking Stephen Miller is a worthy undertaking for anyone, but the mockery clearly is getting into the head of the Millers. The family is not too happy that Gavin has decided that they will be the target of his mockery, and so Katie Miller is melting down, and I want to take a look right here. Katie Miller melts down at Newsom for mocking Trump's Rose Garden patio. The wife of Donald Trump's far-right deputy chief of staff has criticized California Governor Gavin Newsom after he targeted the president's latest renovation project. Katie Miller, who is married to powerful Trump aide Stephen Miller, appeared on Tommy Loren's podcast to defend the once iconic White House Rose Garden, now paved over to closely resemble the president's Florida Mar-a-Lago resort. Trump unveiled the revamped plaza this weekend with a dinner for Republican allies. The redesigned space, stripped of most of its historic greenery, was widely mocked online, with critics calling it evidence of Trump's lack of beauty, poetry, or humanity. But Miller, 33, was apparently thrilled with the results, praising the beautification and defending the removal of the iconic lawn. When President Trump pays out of his own pocket to beautify the White House and make it so Republicans, especially those in Congress, as we saw Friday night, can have the chance to come together after hours, they need to have those moments, Miller said. When questioned on Newsom's take, Miller was clearly unimpressed. It's incredibly hypocritical when you have Gavin Newsom stand up and complain about that, but not about portions of the Democrat Party, she said. To me, that's what makes politics so disgusting to the American people. You just want to see everyone get along and work for the benefit of you and your family. Safe streets, safe communities. That's not what Gavin Newsom is doing. All he's doing is dunking on Donald Trump. No one's delivered more action and results for the American people than Donald Trump. That's all he does every day. Is Katie Miller seriously complaining that Gavin Newsom is dividing America? Not the most divisive figure we've seen in our politics since the Civil War in Donald Trump. The January 6th guy isn't dividing America. The guy with the enemies list isn't dividing America. And what has Donald Trump done to create safe streets? Donald Trump doesn't have a crime policy. Donald Trump has an intimidation policy. Stephen Miller has an intimidation policy because these are weak, pathetic, insecure men who are going to continue to melt down as things get worse in their White House, which you better believe it is, because Donald Trump's Jeffrey Epstein scandal isn't going away. We saw Stephen Miller screaming about it last night on Fox, and that's only going to get worse as we see Democrats like Jasmine Crockett call him out.
It's like second grade level. What did you all discuss in the meeting today? Like, where do you go from here?
So we talked about like our upcoming hearings. We have a big markup on D.C. So we've got to deal with all the bills that are about to come through and come up with our strategy on that as well. But basically, we were kind of getting a rundown of like what's happening next. Like, we've been able to get some of these documents. One of the ones that was not shared by y'all, maybe y'all shared it earlier today. It's also kind of this picture, and it talked about the $22,000. And it basically said something to the effect of buying, it alluded to buying someone who had basically run their course. Like
a person.
A person.
Yeah.
woman.
We have not yet shared that image with our audience. I'm curious, given that you have staffers going to New York to sit down with the Epstein estate on Wednesday, what is it you want them looking for in those documents?
So for them, what we expect committee staff to do is to make sure that the things that they did redact, because all we're getting is redacted documentation. And frankly, I don't think that the DOJ has actually been very forthcoming with a lot of the documents that they've given us. Obviously, we know that the early documents they gave us are basically things that we already had. But then they literally were sending us pages and everything black. I'm like, so the and A and U, that's got to be like redacted. Like, so this is just to make sure that these are good faith redactions, unlike what I feel like we're getting out of the DOJ. So, like, they then will explain, like, the one thing that I was just talking about, it's a picture, right? And so it's got different faces redacted. So we don't know who those people are. So now it'll be an explanation as to why is their face redacted? What are we hiding? And that kind of stuff. So at least the staff will see everything without anything kind of being blacked out.
So I want to go back to the point that you made about that Alicia raised, persons that you want to talk to versus the documents.
Yeah.
And I definitely appreciate the lawyer and you saying, okay, I want to see the receipts.
Yeah.
But then there is the conversation with the people. Do you trust the conversation you will have with Mr. Acosta? Do you expect him to be truthful?
Do I expect him to be? I don't.
Okay.
Am I hopeful that he will be? I am. I plan to be in the room. That is going to take place next Friday. And I plan to be in the room because any skilled litigator understands how to make sure you can set a trap. So I expect him to do his best to be truthful, because there are ways to ask questions that basically he may see it like there's no way they can get me on this, but it's a simple trap and it's a way that we will be able to get it. So I'd suggest that he tread very carefully and understand that truthfulness is paramount. But he is giving a deposition. So I thought it was a transcribed interview.
Right.
But a deposition means that there is the threat of perjury
Because there's
attached.
an oath taken at
Correct.
the beginning of that deposition.
Correct.
Right.
So you do that next Friday. You sit in the room. How soon is it that you can begin to disseminate whatever information it is you gather in that deposition?
So technically, our behind closed doors depots and transcribed interviews were not supposed to go out and talk about. Comer has a problem with keeping his mouth shut. So it's a matter of if Comer opens the door, then the door is open, right? So we just wait on him to go and open the door, which he typically does. But depending on what comes out, he may not. So the rules prevent us, though, unless and until there is an agreement that we release the full kind of transcribed interview or the full deposition, because people like to cherry pick, right? And so the fullness really matters.
Will House Oversight Democrats seek to get that deposition, particularly from Acosta release, given that it's paramount of importance to the survivors and to folks like us sitting at this table?
Yeah, I think the ranking member will get with the rest of leadership and will kind of give a readout on what took place and then kind of figure out which way to go from there.
There should not be a day that goes by without Democrats talking about Jeffrey Epstein. This is the defining issue right now of the Trump presidency, this conspiracy, this cover-up, these crimes. We have to talk about it every day. We are certainly going to be on this show, and if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And if you want to further support the show, you can subscribe below to my Substack and become a paid member if you'd like to, if you have the means. It is a great way to support this show. And we're publishing a lot of fun stuff on Substack. You're going to like that article I just published. And until next time, I'll see you soon.